Are you just learning how to play and are curious on how you take something that looks beat up like this snare drum head here and replace it with a brand new drum head? But wait, do you understand how to tune it too? Do you know what tuning is? Let's cover all that right now in this video. Are you ready? Let's learn drums. Cue the intro. Hello and welcome to Let's Learn Drums, a beginner's guide to the drum set from markslessonsforkids.com. All right, I am Mark Ali, your music instructor for this video and this series. I've been doing this a long time, and I have to tell you, when I first started playing drums, I did not think about what we're going to go over in this video, which is how to change out your drum head and how to tune your drum. In this case, the snare drum, the backbeat, the 2 and 4, the step, step. Everything that you've heard in music that you love, you're hearing that. It's important to understand how to do it. When you're first learning, you just kind of go in and experiment, even if you have no idea what's going on. With this video, I want to kind of give you a good starting point. There are a lot of videos on YouTube specifically that go over this subject. Brilliant videos that are there for your pleasure to look over and to learn from. Here, I want to try and give you the basics, the real core basics. I overcomplicate things all the time, all right? I want to make sure that you know how simple this can be. It's about using your ear, and it's about experience and just doing it over and over and over again, and you just get better at it, and you get faster. So I'm going to take you through the steps, I'm going to take you through what you need to do it, and how to organize yourself to where it's fast and it's clean. And when you get that drum head on the drum and play it for the first time, you're inspired by that instrument. You're hearing what in your head, what you are used to listening to and being inspired by. And that's the best thing. It's rewarding, and it's so important to not only play your drums really awesome, but know how they sound so you can sound awesome as well. So you're in the right place, and let's get started. All right, so getting into the video, we're going to start with the 3 basics of what we're going to go over. We're going to go over the snare drum, we're going to go over the type of drum head, and how to tune it. These 3 things are essential in this process. Now, let's start with the snare drum. Now, every subject that I'm about to show you is its own video in itself about types of snare drums, types of drum heads, so many techniques on how to tune. But the thing is, we're going to show you the simplest and easiest explanations of all 3, okay? That's my goal here, to make things as simple as possible, because they're all pretty weighted subjects. I mean, there's a lot to them, okay? There's many types of snare drums, from wood to metal to anything you can think of. There's a snare drum being made out of it. There's one of 3D printed material. This is 2020, so sky's the limit. Okay, this particular snare drum is something I've loved for years. It's called the Big Black by Pork Pie, and it's an independent drum company, one of the first ever independent drum companies. And I love this snare drum, and it's something that I've gravitated towards because I've had drummers that have played this drum before that I've really loved. I love metal snare drums because of certain drummers that I was inspired by that led me to have that sound that I wanted, and turned out to be a metal drum. So I was like, I need to have that drum. So over time, in your experience, you're going to be able to have a preference. When you're first getting started, you don't have a preference. You just want to play the drums. So to have this little bit of information, I hope helps you a little bit to get started. But basics. All about the basics. Okay, so snare drum. Now, let's talk about the drum head. This little accessory is called a big fat snare drum, but we'll go over that a little later. Now, there are 2 different types of drum heads. There are coated heads and there are clear heads. Back in the day, way when drum heads were being created, they're called calfskin heads, I believe made out of a cow. I could be wrong, I could be right, but they had to come up with a way of not having to use those heads anymore, so they came up with what called a mylar head. Now, big subjects, but we're going to go back to the basics. So this particular head is by Remo, and it's called a Powerstroke 77. So many new head choices out there, it's endless. Again, a whole another video. We're going to take this drum head and we're going to replace it with another drum head. In this case, a clear Powerstroke 77. Is he clear? Bam! You typically see coated heads on snares, and then you see either coated head or clear head on toms. This comes down to experience and a preference of sound and experimentation, because you experiment and try to figure out what sounds are best for you. I'm going to choose to put this clear snare drum head in place of the coated head because I want to try out what this sounds like. I may or might not like it, but I have heard drummers play this particular snare drum with this head, and I did like the sound. So I listened, I kept my ears open, and I had something in my head I wanted to try. Since I've tried a lot of different heads over my years, I've yet to really spend time with this clear configuration. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace this head with this head. That leads us into the next portion of this video, which is how to switch it out, and I'm going to show you some really cool tips on how to do it the easiest way possible. So let's go over the tools really quick. Let's start with the most important tool, which is the drum key. The drum key. We as drummers got to have a bunch of these because we lose them all the time, but this drum key is important because we get to unscrew the tension rods. Now these are tension rods right here. The tension rods are what hold the drum hoop with the drum head. The drum head goes underneath the drum hoop attaches with the tension rods to the lugs, and there's about 10 lugs on a snare drum and about 6 lugs on a tom-tom. And these lugs are what hold the tension rods in place, and when you screw with your drum key the tension rod, it creates a tighter or looser effect so your drum can be in tune for high or low pitches. Okay, so the drum key, the tension rod, very important. Of course, what you're also going to need is a drum stick, because you're going to hit the different tension rods or the drum, and you're going to test it out every step along the way. Then what you're going to need is this stuff called white lithium grease, and you can get this at a Lowe's or a Home Depot or an auto parts store. And what it is it gives a little bit of lubrication to the tension rod to where it doesn't rust and it's easier to screw on. So it's important to have just a little bit of that on the tension rod. And of course what you're going to need is some sort of cleaner, because you want to clean your drum. In this case I got this Music Nomad drum detailer, but you can get anything from just any regular household product. And then your microfiber cloth to clean all the dust off and to make it look all pretty and nice because it's fresh. And if you're anything like me, you want something fresh and clean before you get it all dirty. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to remove these things. Now, what these are, and these are just an extra accessory. These are not required, but these are called lug locks. And they're little plastic things that go onto the head of the tension rods, and they create it to where they lock the tension rods in place to where it doesn't come loose when you're hitting when you're hitting it really hard. So what you want to do is you want to put those on here. I got about 5 of these on here, just at the bottom, because that's usually where my tension rods come loose, and they stay on there to keep them from coming loose. That's it. Okay, so I'm going to remove this thing, and I told you what this was, or what was going to tell you what this was earlier. To give a quick explanation of this product, it's called the Big Fat Snare Drum. It's not a snare drum, as you can see, it's just called Big Fat Snare Drum. And what this does is it takes the snare drum when you hit it and it makes it fatter. And this is how. I'm going to take the drumstick and hit the drum head. You hear all those overtones? Okay, now watch what happens when I take the Big Fat Snare Drum and put it on. Deadens it, makes it bigger, fatter. So this is an extra accessory, not required, but it really is awesome and I love it. So there we go. All right, so let's remove the lug locks. And the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna remove all 10 of these tension rods. And let's see how fast I can do it, all right? All right, that was pretty quick, wasn't it? You get pretty good when you do this a bunch of times. So now that the head is off the drum, the best part, we get to put the brand new one on. Okay, so first things first. So let's remove the old head. Nice beat up. Oh, this is the best. Okay, so what I like to do is I want to take the drum hoop. See, the tension rods are already on it. I want to take all the tension rods off. Now, what I like to do is start with a nice clean hoop, because if you're going to have your drum head on this drum for a long time, it's going to get dirty, and you're going to constantly try to keep it clean, but it's just going to get dirty. So why not start with a fresh, clean hoop? So I'm going to take our detailing, there we go, spray it on there a little bit, goes a long way, and then I'm going to take the cloth, the microfiber cloth, and I'm going to clean it. And you can find these microfiber cloths all over the place, and it's good to have a bunch on hand, because if you're anything like me, you just like to keep things nice and clean. Sometimes you can't because you just get so busy and you forget, but this is good to have nice and clean, fresh hoop. Ah, there you go. All right, so now that the hoop is nice and clean, let's take the drum and let's clean the drum. But before we clean the drum, let's look at the bottom, okay? We didn't talk about the bottom yet. So we have another drum head on the bottom. Usually this is a thinner drum head. This is a snare side head by Remo, and I've had this on here for not too long, so I'm not replacing it today, but it has a lot to do with tuning. And we're going to talk about that in a second. But let's talk about a couple other elements. You have the snare wires on the bottom, okay? Now this is important because this is attached to the throw off, or whatever you want to call it, drop clutch throw off. And there's a bunch out there, but it releases it and tightens it. And that has a lot to do with the tuning. That's a whole nother video to go over the bottom and top, but we're gonna, for the sake of time, just go over the top head. The moment has come. We are going to take our brand new drum head, our Powerstroke 77 clear drum head, and we're gonna put it on the drum. Now, the one thing I like to do, and this is a little secret, okay? You're knowing right from the very beginning, a little secret, is every drum head is unique to itself. So to check that you have a good drum head, you gotta look for the connection of the seams that connect from one to the next. Now, I'll show you a little bit of a close-up on this, but the connecting seam here, see that? The connecting seam has to be really flush connected to each other. Now what this means is that the drum head doesn't have any imperfections. It's a perfect head. So you always look for that when you're choosing a drum head. Check for that seam to see if it's off or not. Get another one if it is, because it does help with the longevity of the drum head. All right, so this just gets the head nice and loose, so when you put it on the drum, it's just that much easier to tune. All right, so before we put the head onto the drum, let's clean the rim of the drum. Sometimes I like to take a little bit of a spray onto the cloth itself and just clean the inside. And this is just me being crazy and going, I just want every little bit clean. I don't want any dust in there. I like a nice clean drum before putting the head on. It just feels good. Now I like to take the logo of the head and put it straight in the center. You don't have to, that's just something I like to do. Nice and flush against that drum. Oh, awesome. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our drum hoop and we're going to align the holes of the lugs just like so. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your white lithium grease and your tension rod, and you're gonna take just a little bit of the white lithium grease and apply it to the tip of the tension rod. Now don't squeeze too hard, just a little bit will go a long way. Bam, that much. And then you're going to take the tension rod and you're going to put it through into the lug, just like that. I'm pretty fast, right? Okay, so all the tension rods are in the lugs. So what I like to do is I like to finger tight all the lugs first, meaning that you just screw these things on until with your fingers it's as far as they will go. Okay, now that is the first part, because you want to get them finger tight. That's the beginning. All right, so there we go, finger tight. Keep working it, keep working it, keep working it until all the lugs are just tight enough, fingers only. You might get a little grease on your fingers, but that's okay, that comes with the territory. You can always wipe that off later. Okay, so all these now are tight as far as my fingers can go onto the drum. All right, now I have not done anything but just use my fingers. Now, this is the first time I'm going to hit this drum head. All right, you ready? Let's see how it sounds just with the fingers. I haven't even used the drum key yet. Already I'm loving how that sounds. Wow. Now, let's do this. Let's take the drum key and let's start by tuning it. Okay, now, there are many ways to go about this. You can either start with one end, go right across from the other, or you can go left to right, right to left. There is no really wrong way to do this, okay? But what I like to do is take two drum keys, okay? Now, if you don't have two drum keys, you can use one, but I like to have one on one end and one on the other, okay? So I pick a lug and I pick a tension rod and I start from this point. And I want to go together until I feel tension and then go a full turn. Just like that. I'll take this one, go to the next, bring it out a little bit, and feel the tension, and then go a full turn. And then I'll just go around the clock, just like this. And I'll reach the tension until I feel it and go a full turn. And then I will do the same thing here. I will go until there is tension. And then I'll go a full turn. And then I'll do it again. I'll go until there's tension. And then I'll go a full turn. Make it a song. Go until there's tension. A full turn. But when I get to the point where I started from, I want to go ahead and hit it again. All right, here we go. Moment of truth. Here we go in real time. Sound a little bit better, a little bit more. All right, we're getting there. Okay, so we're experimenting here. We can go higher or lower, but before we go any further, what I like to do is take the fiber cloth towel, microfiber towel, put it into the center. Now you can take this off the stand, but I kind of just like to do it on the stand. Take your palm and push into it. You hear it crinkle? When you press into it, you're helping to loosen it. You don't have to do this, but it usually helps to give a little bit of love to push it and get it to where it quits until it quits crinkling. Now, after that's done, hit it again. Usually the lugs and the tension rods, they'll become a little loose. So I take one key and I start to hit it where the lug is and see how far I want to take it, higher or lower. I want to see how high I can take it first. So I'm going to start with this one. I'm going to go around and I'm going to kind of feel and tap. Feel and tap. Hear it kind of means it turns a little more because of how when I pressed it down. So it gets a little tighter now. And I keep going. And keep going. Okay, now you can be experimental with this. It does not need to be perfect. Hit it again. Just sounds really tight. If you like that sound, stick with that sound. If you don't, turn it all the lugs back the other way and keep hitting the center of the drum. You hear the overtone going down. And that is how that sounds. If you want it higher, go higher. A good sweet spot on the drum head is somewhere where you go as high as you can go, and then you bring it back down just a little bit. And that is all about experimenting and coming up with the best sound that you want out of that snare. But a good rule of thumb is have everything as equal as possible. Feel what it's like to feel the tension when you're turning the key, okay? Now, let's do the last thing, which is take our big fat snare drum and put it on. So here it is without. Here it is with it. All those overtones go away. And that sounds pretty good. Now, you can experiment high or low, but that is how you tune a drum. When it comes to the bottom head, you just make sure that it's tight. That's all that matters. Make sure it's at the tightest. Don't go too much, but go to the point, just like the top head, to get as tight as possible. And experiment with loosening it, but the most important thing, rule of thumb, is to keep the bottom head tighter and the top head a little bit looser than the bottom. That's a good rule of thumb right there. And you should be fine. There's no right or wrong way to do this. All right, so in conclusion, we went over the elements that you need to know when it comes to taking a brand new drum head and putting it on the drum, and then how to tune it. Now, again, I cannot stress this enough. Have fun with this. Experiment. Use your own ears. Listen to your favorite drummers. Listen to how those snare drums sound and try and replicate it. Go on YouTube and watch more videos on the subject. It's so crazy. You can go nuts with this stuff. But remember this. Simplicity always wins. So don't overcomplicate it. Don't get intimidated, but just get in there and try it. Experiment. Because that is the funnest part about drumming in general, is there's no rules. And you can create sounds and things that are unique to you and your own tastes. So never be afraid to experiment and just have fun with it. It's the best. So if you enjoyed this video, please do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button down below. Hit a like. Ding that bell so you get notified for more videos in the future, and I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you for your support. Let'sLearnDrums.com.